Welcome. We have lured the magician back. Yes, Patrick Coffin is here tonight with us to do some more mind tricks and help us think about storytelling. And we may have some surprises for him. Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. We're here! Well, guess what? Surprise, it's not kilts. Yes. So luring Patrick here for for a very special, I was going to say Halloween Eve, but it's not. It's Thanksgiving Eve. Kilts, of course, because down there in the down under, it's summer has gone walkabout on us, which means that now Casey can be on camera with us and ask Patrick, who has been lured here into our den of magic and mystery, some Catholic questions. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Good to be lured. I feel like I'm part of fishing tackle equipment somewhere on a quiet lake.
Well, this fits our aquatic theme, right? It's like we're on an ark and we're sailing around in the flood of modernity, hoping for the dove to go out and find some branches of trees and hope. You know about hope, right?
Well, through bitter experience, Chesterton said something like, unless your circumstances are hopeless, hope doesn't have any meaning.
That just solved our entire stream. Okay, good.
Really good.
No, because Patrick, I will tell you, you're in for a ride, because both Casey and I watched a lot of you, and she has backstory on when you were in a previous media incarnation, right? So she may dredge up questions from the answers.
She was going to go all the way back to 10th grade math class with like video.
We might. We don't know where we're going, right?
Okay,
but so just to fill you in a little bit on our backstory. So the Mosaic Arc started 68 episodes ago. We've done pretty well. We only do it weekly, so that shows some stamina on our part. And our idea was, it's the Mosaic because that's McLuhan reference to the way we exist in this digital electronic environment, that everything is pieces and it's kind of a rave, and we're sailing around in the internet collecting fragments of meaning. All right. So there's that one level of Mosaic, but then of course there's the second level of Mosaic, which is Moses from the scriptures, who is commanded by God to make an ark for carrying the covenant, the tablets of the covenant. And then there's the second layer of the Noah's Ark, which is sailing around on the floods. And then the third layer, wait, I've lost how many layers. How many layers is that? You guys have to keep count, because I can't.
You're up to 5.
The true ark, which is Our Lady, right? The Moses's ark in reality is, of course, the pattern for what it means for Our Lady to have born Christ. All of that's embedded in our title. And we almost never completely explain that. We just expect people to be mystified.
Well, there's maybe this is an interesting starting point. I learned it's not something I studied for, except for watching people in the mentalism community and people who perform magic, whether close up or stage, that you can embed a lot in a storyline as a way of verbally misdirecting the audience. Now, one of my teachers is the late great Tommy Wonder. He was from the Netherlands, absolute master. He created effects, he created magic equipment, and he was a wonderful performer and teacher. And he said to magicians and mentalists, don't call it misdirection. That makes you nervous, like you're lying. Just call it direction. So as you're telling the story, you're directing the audience to think a certain way, hear a certain thing, or look in a certain location. So the classic example is if I reach in my hand and pull out some wiffle dust and I do this, everyone is going to look at my hand because instead something's going to appear there. Meanwhile, I can get away with murder with my left hand because I've already directed everybody away from where the monkey business happens. So there's one anecdote. It's very, very short, and it goes to the title of tonight's stream. And that is, if you say to people, you have to do it kind of with a poker face. Look, I want you to think of, I'm going to ask you a question about the Bible, the Old Testament. Think of a story in the Old Testament. And in the story of the Ark, in which order did the animals go into Moses' Ark? So which order, like the animals? Now, most people are going to go 2 by 2, right? Did you just think 2 by 2?
I didn't.
You didn't.
Well,
No, I didn't.
It's Noah's, not Moses. But you see, I've already said Old Testament, and I emphasized animals. And if you put the pause in the right place, it gets by 95% of people who are biblically literate.
But I did miss that. I missed that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the way you want to. The stronger magicians out there know how to talk about what's happening in a way that completely covers up what's really happening. So I think Moses and the Ark is a good example, because for some reason, I think except for David and maybe Abraham, Moses and Noah are the two most colorful. I think those two men dominate the public imagination through Hollywood movies and so on. It's easy correlation to make.
Well, but I set myself up to be confused by that because I was talking about the Ark, the sense of the Ark, which has both the ship and the box as images of carrying life.
Yeah. One carried the Savior and one carried the saved, at least as a type, right?
Right. But also, so this is, Patrick, when you're talking about the way magicians work in terms of, misdirecting and pointing and things like that, this is Casey. Well, Casey's been working with me as long as Kilt's. It's like the three of us are the core of the long durée of the work that we've done in Dragon Common Room, because both Casey and Kilt's joined me 4 years ago. No, 3 years ago. Kilt's and I met 4 years ago online, right? But I started the Dragon Common Room 3 years ago with writing the poems, and we've written the Centrism games, the Aurora Borealis, and Draco Alchemicus all together. All the three of us have been together. And then Mel, who's working with us now in Draco Alchemicus, came in with that one after she found us for reading our other books. So thinking about the way we've learned to try to tell stories that both point to the truth, but also carry this level of symbolism and mystery. And when you were saying with direction, or look at this and not see that a lot of times what we're trying to do is put the thing in there that later you'll realize. It's the Chekhov gun problem of the storytelling, right? Put the thing in there that later you'll realize was really significant, but when it first showed up, it was just something that made sense on its own, but it didn't seem necessarily to carry any greater significance. But knowing that people, once you've dropped something in, need it to come back in, because otherwise you're like dissatisfied. It's like, well, but but I kind of remember this thing that you mentioned, and why didn't you mention it later? Because surely our sense of meaning is from this reincorporation and story, so that you're sort of improvising a story. The main way to make it seem as if you've meant it all along is just bring back in things that you said at the beginning. It's like, aha, yeah. I create the illusion of knowing what I'm talking about all the time, because I just remember what I started with, and then I bring it back in, and then
resemble that remark.
Well, but the thing is, I will trust myself to have said something to start with out of kind of intuition that it mattered, and then later it will come back in and like, aha, that's why it was there. I know that I meant it. That's why it felt right, even though I didn't know why, which is, as a Christian, a good deal of my experience of, you're looking for God's direction, right? Talking about direction and misdirection. God's constantly directing us to things that if only we pay attention to, and they come back in and we say, aha, I know that that meant to happen. Now, whether we're creating that illusion for ourselves, and that's the sort of, I did actually want to go, we've gone deeper faster than I meant to, but Patrick, I was actually hoping to get you to talk with us some about how you think about teaching theology, which is a little unfair to, you started with, we were going to do magic tricks. But the kinds of questions that people have when they're just saying, oh, you're making this all up, you're creating meaning where there isn't any because of propensities that we have in, for example, storytelling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But maybe we want to do tricks first. I don't know.
Excuse me, madam. They're called effects.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hey, Will, Casey and I will start telling you about the rhyme we were working on in tonight's stanza.
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
No. Well, a good starting point, as you were talking about, when you hear something the first time through, it might not sink in, and then you find ways of emphasizing what you really have been saying all along.
Right.
That made me think of the best example in this history of cinema. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in having what you said land on me properly, Night Shyamalan's third movie, the first movie he did was called Praying with Anger, kind of a film student movie. And then he did a film that was miraculously picked up by Miramax, run at the time by Harvey Weinstein. That's called Wide Awake. Very kind of sweethearted Catholic movie starring an actress who in real life I really loathe. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but she's actually really great in this movie. That's Rosie O'Donnell as a nun.
Wow.
I'm guiltiest, believe me. It was his second movie, and Bruce Willis saw Wide Awake, and it was the strength of his directing and storytelling abilities that led Bruce Willis to bring the script that he loved for The Sixth Sense to an executive at Disney and plunked it on his desk, and he said, I will play Malcolm Crowe. This kid knows what he's doing. And that's how The Sixth Sense got greenlit. So have you seen The Sixth Sense? The movie?
Yeah. Which one is which one is The Sixth Sense?
It's about the child psychologist who befriends a fatherless boy played by Haley Joel Osment. And the boy tells him, this movie, this is kind of a spoiler alert. Shyamalan and his writers give the trope, the secret, if you will, away over and over again. Right. But so close that it's not quite a revelation. The tagline on the film poster is, I see dead people, but they don't know they're dead. And he discloses this secret to Bruce Willis in the hospital while the boy's in the hospital. It's not till the end when Bruce Willis comes home one night and his estranged wife is watching their video, their wedding video, and she lets her hand slide off, and the ring that's no longer on her hand rolls along the floor. And then the voiceover is the boy from earlier in the film. In his head, he's remembering, I see dead people and they don't know they're dead. And Bruce Willis's character, he looks at his finger, his ring finger, it's gone. He's not wearing his finger. And then he touches the side of his, underneath his jacket, and there's blood in his hand. That's when you realize Bruce Willis has been dead all along. How did I miss it? So you watch the movie again, you see how brilliant, how close Shyamalan dropping the whole secret. It's really something else.
It was really well guarded too, right? Because his character is a child psychologist. Why wouldn't he be talking to this poor child who thinks he sees dead people, right?
Yeah. Yes. So not only is it an extended metaphor about purgatory and the dead who are not at rest, but it's I think at the core, The Sixth Sense is a story of a childless father whose lesson is to listen to his wife, and the son, the child psychologist, a son, and his secret, I mean, what he wants to impart to the boy is speak to these ghosts, speak to the dead people. They bond in fatherlessness and sonlessness, if you will, and it all has to do with communication. And ultimately, communication I mean, they don't talk about praying for the dead, but I think Shyamalan has enough Catholic formation from going to Catholic schools his whole life as a Hindu. It's sunk in, the idea of the dead not at rest, not in hell, but not also in glory, looking at God face to face. A great film to rewatch.
Or maybe watch it all. But what I hear is, I mean, it's not just the dead in purgatory, but this sense of, the problem of God's view and our view, and God sees the whole story always, and our experience of the story of life, of time, is each of these things happen, and then later we look back and suddenly it all clicks into place and you realize it was meaningful all along. And I was thinking, it's like the other thing I was thinking about is, like, we could talk about the Trinity, because we spared you that from the first time around when we did the tricks in the summer, or the effects. But I would actually, it would be nice to sort of workshop through, how do we explain this sense of being in the story and meaningful to people that don't have that understanding already. And that is because selfishly, I've been, I'm teaching my History of European Civilization course this quarter, alongside, that's an undergraduate class, alongside a graduate class in reading the Gospels. And so I've been having this kind of whiplash effect between the two courses, because with the Gospels course, we're reading about how over the early Middle Ages, commentators read or didn't read the kinds of things that we expect to find in a Jesus story. And in the History of European Civilization class, I have mainly students who, well, either they're Catholic and they have a lot of back formation, or they don't have any. And I just gave them an essay in which I was asking them to say, how has what we've been reading changed what you knew before? I'm trying to get them, like, how do you get to the experience that the catechumen has, that Augustine says, find yourself in the story, recognize all of these resonances and these, the directions that God has been giving you to see meaning in all of this. You can't do it unless people have the story to start with, and then sort of in the layers and layers and layers of what we do as there are no good words for it. It's like the thought leaders. Influencers. No, that's planets. No, wait. The sort of, as Christians bearing witness. Right. And you're saying that the movie maker you were just talking about had some formation so that he knew how to set a story up to have that effect. But then how do you explain, well, that is in fact the effect that we're meant to have between the Noah arc, the Moses arc, and the Incarnation? It's that feeling of suddenly recognizing the fullness of the story that's always been there.
I like to talk about definitions. I think we touched on this last time in our study. I like the definition by David Howard, who for a long time was the director of the screenwriting program at USC. And his definition of a story is that a story is about someone who wants something very badly and is having a hard time getting it. So there's a protagonist and an antagonist implicit in that definition. It's a very compressed definition. I think all grim fairy tales have it. I think Chaucer, Beowulf, Greek tragedy has it, plays, and certainly Scripture has it. You've got the three-part structure. One of my mentors in screenwriting is David Mamet, who wrote, among other things, he wrote State of Maine. He wrote The Verdict. Oh, funny, small world. The Verdict features Bruce Willis with hair as an extra in the big court scene behind.
Wow. I want to look for it now.
So when you say he was one of your mentors, you studied with him directly?
He was a masterclass.com teacher. Yeah, him, and I studied with him and Aaron Sorkin, who created but David Mamet, I think, is a certified genius. He's Pulitzer winner. He also directed The Untouchables with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery. And
David Mamet directed that?
A-M-E-T. David Mamet also directed a rated G film. He's got a lot of F-bombs in a lot of his stories. A very gritty kind of Chicago storyteller. But this is a rated G film. Fumi, not even a good portmanteau. This is a rated G film called The Winslow Boy. Adapted a Terrence Rattigan play. And The Winslow Boy is simply an exploration of the question, did a 9-year-old boy steal from the British mail system or didn't he? And it goes all the way to Parliament. A member of Parliament representing the boy. Riveting. Rated G. The Winslow Boy. You're welcome in advance. So, and Mamet says, I know I brought up Mamet, a story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end in that order, which is why French movies suck.
Well, I mean, beginning, middle, and the end, it's Aristotle, right? Isn't it? I mean,
yeah, Aristotle in the Poetics is the first, I think, real expositor of story structure. Yeah, and then his, I guess, may he rest in peace, William Goldman took that in his own direction. I think he's the only screenwriter, Goldman is, to win 2 Academy Awards for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and All the President's Men. He also did Marathon Man, and he wrote the book and adapted the Princess Bride.
Yeah,
so, long of writing. And he says story is structure. And the reason I love talking about the similarity or the overlap between good stories, including screenplays and scripture, is that scripture is one big 3-act structure. You have the beginning. Act 1 is creation. And Act 2 is the loss and destruction of creation. Right. It's boy meets girl. Boy loses girl. So the Lord loses his people and they lose him. And then Act 3 is the restoration. But not just going back to the garden. This is something I hear Christians say and it drives me batty. We don't go back to the garden. The garden is the scene of the crime. We want up to paradise. You can't go back to the garden. Tom Wolfe said, you can never go home. Because of the sin of our first parents, that's no longer home and never will be home. So the ending of a satisfying story is always some richly ironic ending that is simultaneously surprising, but then fulfilling. Even it's sort of that both and. Something works out in an ironic way, even if it's not a quote unquote happy ending. Like Rocky's a really good example of beginning, middle, and end. I think it's the best of the Rocky franchise. And here's a trivia question for you. After you have the initial Bill Conti, dun dun da da dun da da dun da da da, and the word Rocky flies by in plain white font on black background, then it says United Art. Do you know the first image of the first Rocky movie that launches the entire franchise? The first thing we see is an icon of Jesus. Boom, and then it pans down. There's Rocky duking it out, total dive, this garbage-ridden basement boxing ring with an unknown loser fighter. And the next shot is from below, and you see the fighters. And in the background, just a little bit out of focus, Stallone tells us where we are. Resurrection Athletic Club.
Oh my gosh!
No way!
That's really good.
And then
I've seen this, but I don't remember that. I gotta watch it again now.
He never really returns to it, except that's his chosen opener. And John Avildsen shot it as it's written on the page.
So Stallone wrote that.
Pardon me?
Stallone wrote that in then to the script.
He wrote the first 2 Rockies. He may have had an input in Rocky 3, I'm not sure. Sly, if you're out there, I want to get you on my show, because I think especially the first two, Rocky, the original Rocky in particular, is a masterclass in mindset. Rocky's fighting simultaneous enemies, and the least enemy that he's fighting is Apollo Creed. His first enemy is himself. He has to fight himself to overcome his shyness in wooing Adrian. Mm-hmm. His second is Adrian's brother, Paulie. Paulie, what do you want from me? What are you going to do? And
I just thought of something.
What's that?
I just thought of something. His rival is named Apollo, right? The sun god.
Creed.
Yeah.
Creed.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
I think, Patrick, I'm not sure you said that in our last episode together. I think you told me that when I was begging you for help on our blurb for Draco Chemicus, right? That you were counseling me on how to, in fact, show the story that we were writing, and now I can't remember. I got to the point where I understood it was a love story rather than all of the things that we were calling it back in the Kickstarter days. All these many months ago, when it was, a fairy story, because we were saying, but it's a fairy queen, right? It should be a fairy story. And it's like, nobody knows what that means. Or it should be, this electric pirate fantasy, because we thought, that'll be cool because, it would sound mysterious. And realizing that people want it, on the one hand, they want to be surprised. I think the irony, I'd like to talk about that in a moment, but they want to know what kind of story it is. And then I, was saying, well, it is in fact bluntly a love story, which I had to burst into tears to figure out, because I tend to do that. I clutch my precious so close that I can't see it until I say, it's a love story. Okay, it's Christ's love for the soul, which is directly the structure that we've given Draco Chemicus. And then how you said it needs to be that there's something that's lost. How did you put that?
Well, just follow the greatest 3-act structure of sacred scripture. It's
creation.
It's the creation, the fall, the restoration.
Right, but you tend to drop yourself into but you said there's an antagonist, right? There's some kind of antagonist, and of course in Draco Chemicus, the dragon rules everything. So I just start with that, right? The dragon rules the city of light, and that the beloved has been lured away, and Damien has to enter into the story and win her back, right? And being able to say that in a way that shows the conflict and also the hope was really important.
Yeah. Well, God is. Has multiple meanings too, and this just came to me as you were talking right now. God is the director. Satan is the misdirector. Mm. And a misdirector is still contingent upon direction, in the same way that a lie is contingent upon the truth. That's why Satan is a parasite.
Right.
He's a parasite being. He's a parasite ontologically, because a lie has to rest in and twist some truth. Otherwise, it's not an effective lie. A really good liar is going to resemble the truth, which is why the Antichrist doesn't have to resemble the devil. He has to resemble Christ.
Right.
And subtly he can do, more people will be lured. Remember St. Paul, I think it's 1st or 2nd Thessalonians, I can never remember which, but he's talking about the man of sin, the man of perdition, whose appearance will come before the second coming of our Lord. And he says, there will be a great deception so powerful that even the elect would be swayed. That's got to be some powerful deception, which means it has to ape the truth effectively. So people will say, enough of that has the ring of truth. I think I'm going to be, tempted by it.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do in Draco Chemicus. It's the dragon is twinning of Christ. And he's this is like the dragon rules the city of light, and it needs to be the city of light because that's where we are in this internet reality. And the sin is attractive. He rules it with magic and vice. So now we have the illusion, right? And also the temptations, and the Columbine, the beloved, has been enchanted by that vice. So we invite you to enchant us now with your effects.
Wow, that's the way we were. Segue. Let me let me start with something really fun, and it goes to what seems to be free choice that might be part of an overarching knowledge that's not foreknowledge. And it's all, it won't work unless you know what Graceland is. Do you know what Graceland is?
But Elvis's house?
Yeah.
Elvis' house in Memphis. Now, there's some lore about Graceland, sort of like the lore about Disneyland. I don't know if this is true, but it works well for magic. So this is a blue bike deck. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
I buy my car at Costco. This is not a gaffed deck at all. It's a blue bicycle deck. And allegedly, Graceland had. Okay, cool. Graceland had 2 rooms in it, but one of the rooms. Now I'm gonna tilt down and just talk so you can see me here. I don't want any of this out of frame. You see the deck there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that coming in focus?
No, it's your hand is in focus.
Let's try that.
The focus. If you have the focus really, the deck is now in focus.
Okay, very good.
But it's going in. It's going in and out of focus. The effect, the camera effect is making this more mysterious than maybe you want it to.
Okay.
This is your fancy iPhone.
Crazy. Xi Jinping, if you're listening, please help.
The deck is it's just coming in and out of focus. You're gonna have to go really slow. Because the camera's focusing and then not focusing.
Okay, there it is. So one of the rooms in Graceland was called the Red Room. It was off the main foyer. And there's my phone saying I'm out of power. Just a sec. Oh, sorry.
Maybe that's why. Yeah, Kilt says what we were talking about this night in our poetry writing session was golf. Well, that's sort of true.
Yes.
There was golf.
Nice.
Golf was mentioned.
1 sec. Okay. All right. I think I have the solution.
More power. You have to be connected to the electrical grid.
There it is. Okay. This should be a little better. Let me see if I can. It's so kooky. I've never had this focus problem before.
Of course not, because you're live right now.
Wait a minute. Is this a direction?
No, this is actually not.
This is just the tech. It didn't do this in rehearsal for sure.
Huh. Now there we go. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm flipping the deck face up. Now, ordinarily, if I do this live, one of you will do this cut, and I just say freely cut. I think you can tell when I grab the cards that it is a free choice. This is not part of the. What I'm about to do is not fake. I'm actually randomly cutting the deck. Okay. We believe you. So, okay. Now I can do that again if you want, or we can stick with that choice.
The 4 of diamonds. Yes, we'll stick with that.
Okay. Want to use the 4 of diamonds, or do you want to use the 8 of clubs packet? You pick.
The 4.
4? Okay. Whoa.
Wait, you have 2 different backs there. Where'd you get those red ones?
What red ones?
There were red ones. We saw them.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. But you started with the 4 of diamonds, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 4 of diamonds. That was a free choice?
Yep.
All right. This is cool. I want you both at the same time to picture a deck of cards with only the 4 of diamonds the wrong way. So 52 cards are going one way, but the 4 of diamonds is reversed. You with me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Red deck, a la the Red Room.
Yes.
At Graceland. 4 diamonds,
yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And in your minds, there's 51 cards facing one way, except for that 4 of diamonds, right? You with me?
Okay. Yep. No cards in the box.
You probably can't tell from where you are because of the focus thing, but I can affirm from this angle, it is in fact the 4 of diamonds. Thank you.
You didn't show it to us. Oh, nice.
Now, why is that not in focus? Crazy.
So it looks like the camera is. So the thing is, I've used an iPhone camera for my streams on this, and this it should be able to focus on you without it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, from our bulging live broadcast is what is felt. This is a little better. The background's a bit out of focus, right?
The background's supposed to be out of focus.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
So that we can't read your life in your knickknacks behind you.
No, you can't quite.
We're going to read your life in the knickknacks behind you. There's something white. There's something blue. There's
borrowed something blue. All right.
And then the young boy will come up. No, wait.
Nice. I will tilt down again, and I want you to. This is a really fun effect using 4 queens in face down piles. Red queens, queens from a red deck, and queens from a blue deck.
Okay.
KC, this is not a person's choice or equivoque. Do you want to use blue or do you want to use red?
Red.
Red? All right.
Yes.
These 2 face down piles of queens means that I want you to think of a queen. Don't tell me what it is. See, face down. Think of you got a queen?
You didn't show us they were queens to start with.
Believe me. At this line, you'll see exactly why that is. Okay, so you're thinking of a.
We're suspicious now.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. I will tell Rachel whether you're thinking one of the red queens or one of the black queens. So if you say red, then Rachel, you're going to pick either queen of clubs or queen of spades. If she says black, it's going to be diamond or heart. You with me? Just so we don't come up with the same, you aren't thinking of the same queen. So Casey, tell her if the queen in your mind is red or black.
Black.
Okay, good. So Rachel, you're now selecting one of the red queens, right?
Okay.
Don't tell me what it is. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make 2 promises. Promise number 1 is the queens that you're thinking of are going to flip up, face up in these face down cards. Promise number 2 is they're going to change piles and I'm not going to touch them. So Rachel, for the first time, you had blue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What queen?
I had blue.
What queen do you think?
What queen? I was thinking of the Queen of Hearts.
Yes. The Queen of Hearts. Mm-hmm. Wow. I got it. There. Casey, what was yours?
Queen of Spades.
Queen of Spades?
I think Casey's doing. Casey was worried she wouldn't do full kilt's reactions, but she wasn't here last time.
So listen, here. Remember, I said I kind of did it the cheat way to change, but let me really make them change piles.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
That's weird.
Okay.
Now,
no idea. No idea.
There's one last thing here. It's an extra bonus I didn't tell you about.
Oh golly.
This would not,
how'd you get that many jokers?
you were thinking
there's only 2 in a deck.
This would not work. You were thinking hearts and spades.
That is really weird.
Do it again.
Note to self: never do magic for Rachel again. Do it again. at Cana in the background at a wedding.
Do it again.
Yeah, it was already water. It didn't start with water. As if, get off the stage.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm in this business to learn, right? I want to see how the magic happens, because I mean it's a this rhetorical problem that you can persuade us to think in certain ways by putting the right word in the right place at the right moment, the right inflection,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know how that works. I went it's like Penn and Teller for poetry. Do it again.
Yeah. Nice. I see what you did there. So magic and miracles actually have a lot in common. Chiefly, they have the subversion of expectations, and also they produce effects without sufficient causes, or at least they seem to. And if you look at, speaking of Moses and Mosaic covenant, the magicians of Pharaoh replicate the miracles that God performs through Moses. Again, what's happening with the magicians of Pharaoh is that they're misdirecting. God's movement in history through miracles are not misdirection, they're direction, right? They're dunamis in Greek is the word for dynamite. It's a sign. But all the devil can do is tricks. He can only be a parasite on the real thing, which is the difference between a mere entertainment thing that has to do with direction/misdirection, and the real thing, which is a miracle, which is something in which the God of nature suspends the normal laws of nature to reveal his glory and to bless us. And just one note on the wedding of Cana. It's one of my favorite stories in John's gospel. And of all the four gospels, it's the only miracle that Jesus performs in which no one is healed. Mm. The wedding of Cana is a miracle just because, to make a good wedding great. So I only use my powers for good. I don't want anybody to have bad dreams, please.
Do another one. Since you won't do that one again.
She's stuck in now.
Yeah.
It's
we don't do things
figure it out.
I wonder if I can. Yeah, this might be. I hope. Can I do this one using human beings? Let me see. I'll turn my head. Just say stop whenever you want.
Stop.
Okay, do you want that card or that card? This one?
I don't know which is left and right.
You want this one or do you want
that one?
Okay, this one? Good.
Yes.
I'm going to tilt down, and you see it? You guys all see it there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Watch. Make one last cut right there. Now, I think yours, I really want this to work. I think yours came to the top. Does that look familiar?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I'm going
this is great because like everybody watching can see that I saw, so it's double proof.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put, this is my mic holder. It's hefty enough. It's got some heft to it. So I'm going to put the 8 of clubs. That's the 8 of clubs, right? You guys are all looking at it. I'm going to put it under that right there. It's in plain sight. So I can't get at it. So that I'm not going to touch it except for to move it that way a bit. All right. Now, the next card down is what? Can you guys say that out loud?
King of Spades.
King of Spades.
King of Spades. Is there any doubt? I mean, you're looking right at it, right?
Right. It's a King of Spades.
If the FBI, it's the 8 of clubs and the King of Spades, and you would pass a lie detector with the FBI, wouldn't you?
Well, maybe, but in this situation, it's the King of Spades.
It is the King of Spades, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm stretching this out for a reason. Now watch. 1, 2, 3. Now we have a problem. Because
That's so
I'm
good.
just gonna
Oh man, how did he do that?
No.
2, 1.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
the King of Spades is a little bit naughty, but when it's naughty, I just send it into non-being like that. I just yeah.
So your God-given hands are misdirecting us here. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm a mime. Shoot me.
We can't. We're on the internet.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. So there's another one I can do at the end that involves me being able to tell when you're lying. That involves a deck that you have, right? Rachel, you have a deck there.
Here, yes.
Okay, maybe we can close with that.
Okay.
It's really fun.
Okay, so now we have some work. Casey, you had some specific questions that you wanted to ask him. Whether I can just like surf around and go off my notes here, but.
I didn't have any specific. Is there a particular topic you're thinking, Rachel?
I made you make notes. You were supposed to do your homework.
I did make notes. I made lots of notes, but it's so many different topics.
Go for it. Pick one. Pick a. One thing I want Patrick to explain: evil, sin, salvation, who Christ is, the Trinity, and prayer.
So
see, I wrote it down.
Yeah.
How long do we have?
I was listening to your interview with Naomi Wolf earlier today. It was really excellent. And what fascinated me about it was that you started talking about, well, she started talking about the COVID lockdowns and how people were acting. And she's very sharp. I was very impressed with her because she had questions immediately, and they were really good questions. And but you ended the interview. Well, she actually was asking about eschatology.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fascinating.
Totally. I didn't do any, I rarely do any prep. Maybe 20%. I want 20%, something that I definitely read the book of my guests. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't like the Larry King approach where you can tell the host has not read the book. I really hate that. So I want to honor by reading the book that they write before we talk. But I did not anticipate her to turn the tables like that and start asking me about Catholic eschatology and the Antichrist and Satan and the Catholic worldview about this fallen world. But I was happy to have the open door. And that's a great example. The classic verse for Catholic apologists, everybody listening knows what I'm about to say. It's 1 Peter 3:15. Always have a ready reason for those who ask you of the hope that's in you. Mm-hmm. Right? Reason, defense, summary, explanation, rationale. We're not really supposed to be giving that ready reason unless we're asked. That's the commandment of the first pope. He's not saying be a Catholic, always bring up purgatory, talk about dogma, or in the golf course.
Right.
But if someone asks you of it's in you, well, there's your open door. Now provide your ready reason. And I was very honored that she went there, that she, I guess, trusted how the conversation was going, that it would be a safe thing to bring up. And it was. I mean, we talked about the devil and the Antichrist and the end of history and Christ our Lord and the sacraments and the anger a lot of Catholics felt about being locked away from the sacraments. And that's one thing I with her, because she's a Reformed Jew and she was totally expunged from her synagogue.
That's crazy.
And along with, as most, suburban Novus Ordo parishes with the Mass Army. And she wasn't having any of it. So I was going to check out traditional Latin masses in her hometown. I hope she did. I think it would be a real jolt of champagne for her to.
Well, I love what she said. She said she seemed really excited about that when you told her about an FSSP parish. She wanted to see that. She said it's authentic. And she said the word very excitedly. She said, I would love to see that. It's so authentic. Right. Yep. I think and maybe that's why she brought up eschatology in the end of the world, because she saw, she's kicked out of her synagogue. Lots of people are locked out of their churches. And then she's maybe thinking, well, this is always the way the world has run. And now it's been completely turned upside down. I've heard of this thing called the end times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to logically go through what might have been going through her mind to connect those two things together. I thought that was fascinating. I mean, I wasn't expecting it. It was really interesting.
That's how bad things are around us can be a red pill dispenser that makes people look up, maybe for the first time. Look up, I mean, metaphysically up at God. How where are we going, and why are we in this handbasket?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But so my mischievous self wants us to talk about the Trinity and the things that didn't get said in the not intervention. That I like the advice to just be, I mean, we're joyful, we witness to our joy. I have actually finished the Hope is Fuel series, and everybody should watch it. It's wonderful. And Patrick, it was, well, if I flatter you after I've teased you about the tricks, it's not fair, but they were wonderful interviews. I really like how you set people up to tell their stories, which is a gift. And I learned so many different things that I there's some things like Briggs with his logic, and our friend E. Michael Jones with God has a plan for your life. But there were other things about, the sacredness of the body, and a lot of the women talking about, having been in the feminist moment and moving away from that. A lot of you had several athletes. Who's the basketball player who was talking out for mental health and got canceled? Yeah.
Royce White,
right.
Former NBA star, Royce White. Yeah. His own show called "Call Me Crazy." He's running again against Ilhan Omar in Congress.
Well, that's fun. So, I mean, and you were starting from their position as everyone has. They had hope, right? That you were getting us to witness me, right? I also got to talk about Mary. Thank you. Witness to our hope, and that is, I mean, that's incredibly powerful. If we are the light and the salt in the world, and people will come to us. But what do we do with someone who is mocking and resistant and thinks that the best? I mean, because this is the online situation that Casey and Kiltz and I and Mel have spent a lot of time in, is a lot of ridicule. And
that's an excellent. Yeah. Before I get there, since you mentioned Hope is Fuel, if people want to go to hopeisfuel.com to find out more about what you're just talking about, Rachel, my partner in crime, Ryan Moreau, and I were talking this week, and we just decided we're going to offer 35% off Black Friday sale. If you just go there, you'll find out who the speakers are. I mean, in addition to you, Rachel, talking about Our Lady is the beacon of hope for people who maybe, this is why God is a genius. For people who think of Christianity as masculine, who have been hurt by men, they will find a rich, super feminine, sturdy, strong woman to care for them. And that's the woman who gave the word flesh. David Torkington, who puts it all together with the power of prayer, and not, white belt, white shoes, prayer, just the fact that since the Reformation, and then even worse, since the Enlightenment, our world is screwed up and the church is upside down because we've stopped praying. For so many Catholics, they don't pray. Their faith is their hobby. They like arguing online, so they're apologetics geniuses, but they're not praying. So they're not plugged in. They're like a light bulb that looks like it might carry some light, but it's not screwed into the source. And David Torkington, 85 years young, self-taught, severe dyslexic, can barely read. And I could listen to this man. He could read the funny papers or Kanye West tweets all day. So I'm just such an honor to have met David Torkington. He's our first author over at Essentialist Press. The people who were injured, who have hopeful stories, E. Michael Jones on God having a plan for your life. That goes to great stories too. Briefly, my favorite story from the Old Testament is the patriarch Joseph, who's the most, I think, minutely detailed type of Christ. Joseph, abandoned by his 12 brothers, thrown into a well for 3 days, slavery by the hairy Ishmaelites. He goes, he's accused of rape by Potiphar's wife. So he's the suffering servant. He's innocent. He ends up, because of his ability to prophetically and correctly interpret dreams, he's the number 2 guy under Pharaoh, where he administers bread. He distributes bread at the right hand of Pharaoh. Is any of this sounding familiar?
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a pinch because there's a horrible famine. Jacob deputizes his sons to go to Egypt because they hear about this food that's available. And Joseph recognizes them. They don't recognize him. And he plants the goblet in the backpack of Benjamin as a test. And when the brothers prefer prison to giving up their brother, that's when Joseph has to leave the room. The Bible says the whole palace is filled with the sound of his sobs, because he's so moved at their conversion. And then he says that beautiful line, "I'm Joseph, your brother." And you're like, what? And then he says, that's in the original Hebrew, I think, what? And then he says to them, what you did, you meant for evil, but God has turned it to good.
Okay, now I'm going to start crying.
All of that downward spiral into despair and hopelessness and loss ends up being an upward fall. You see how Canaan, the original, the nucleus of that story is like Eden. It's the garden, but they don't go back to the garden. They go to paradise. Right. And that is a beautiful a foretaste that Canaan is not going to be Canaan forever. Canaan is going to be the promised land. Mm-hmm. Joseph, the forgiving, suffering servant. It's just it's so gorgeous. There's a new book that's not published yet, by the way, by Father James Maudsley. It's volume 5 of would that be Quintology? It's on the conversion of the Jews, and it's called "If You Believed Moses." He has a beautiful, long footnote on Joseph and his relationship to his natural mother, Rachel, who's the young wife of Jacob, and it's just exquisite.
That's pretty topical, you know. The thing that we actually are all praying for is that recognition. Because there's Joseph with the bread and with the goblet, hoping that they'll come back. Yeah,
that's it. That is it. So I think, but where do we leave the main river there? I want to get back to
the problem. So it's one way to be witnessing, which is in hope and being. And I like saying this. It's like in all of the difficulties that we're in at any point, and this seems to help the students when I suggested this to them on campus. It's like how can so few of us have any effect? It's like, well, because Jesus told us you're the salt, and it's like being a light on the a light on the hill is one thing, but saying you're the salt, you're the thing that without which people die. If you have no salt in your body, you die. You're horribly, if you're sweated all out and they're horribly dehydrated and desalinated, you just drop, you're dead, right? So the salt is what we need to be for our our world as Christians, and that that's hopeful and nice, but then there's the obverse of the way in which the arguments can play out. I mean, and Patrick, you have a lot of experience with this, of our internal Catholic arguments, which can get quite bitter and unfortunate. But the sort of general cultural ridicule, right? It's like we can be all the salt, the salty light and hope that we like, but I like the salt lamps, right? They're great, right? So we can be the salt lamps of hope, but maybe that's it, and we just deal with that with the ridicule. But there must be, maybe, is there anything else? What else can we do when people are mocking?
Yeah, good. That's a good question. I found where I wanted to return to. Just go to hopeisfuel.com, find out more about the speakers. 35% off this week for Black Friday. That's my ad. But hopeisfuel.com. I think people they'll find a way to have things land on them in a brand new way that maybe they've heard their whole lives. Yeah. So when people mock the Christian message when their whole intellectual formation is in a subreddit group.
Yes.
Or watching Dick Dawkins talk to atheists. I had a chance to confront Richard Dawkins in San Diego at a atheist convention, and he quickly changed the subject. It was very, very strange. I can tell you one quick anecdote about what he did. It was called the Humanist Association, but they're all atheists. I got to the microphone, and he was still giving his talk, and it was Good Friday. That was the day of the talk. 3,000 atheists crammed into this massive auditorium in San Diego. And he had a frame on his PowerPoint of Jim Caviezel as Jesus in the Passion of the Christ on the cross. And he said this or similar words. Look at Christians. They must believe God is a sadist. Look what he did to his son.
Right.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
The jeers, the mocking. I could almost hear crucify him. Like these people looking at one still frame from Mel Gibson's masterpiece. And then he went to advance it to make his next point. The clicker would not advance that frame. We had to sit there and look at Jesus on awesome. And the cacophony and the mocking slowly went quiet. I'm getting awkward. That just God's little providence, right? Make them look at it. You will look upon there's the brazen serpent. To know is your salvation, and they quickly ran out of their mocking sounds. It was just one of the real. It was a moment of. You can't rehearse those things, right?
That's incredible. The height of irony. Yep. They're all standing here mocking him.
Right.
They're doing what everybody else did on the actual Good Friday.
Super original. I like the advice of my spiritual father, Archbishop Fulton Sheen. And Bishop Sheen dealt with a lot of hostility in the church and out of the church when he was with us. He died in 1979. And Bishop Sheen's advice was, don't so much to what people say, but why they say it. Because normally the mocking of the message of our salvation and the person of Christ our Lord and the message of the gospel is rooted in a lot of unhealed trauma and pain and hopelessness. And there's a saying attributed to Plato that I love very much. And the saying is, be kind to everyone you meet, because everyone you meet is fighting a great battle. They might have a bonhomie, fake smile, but everyone you meet is fighting a great battle. And often the mocking is rooted in pain and anger. That reminds me of one of my favorite lines from C.S. Lewis. It's not well known. I think it's from Surprised by Joy, his 1929 account of his conversion. And C.S. Lewis said, when I was an atheist, I knew God didn't exist. And I was very angry at him for not existing.
Yeah.
That's a really brilliant insight. And so, again, if people ask you of the hope that's in you, that's your open door. I generally don't respond to mocking except to ask why they're angry. Why are you angry? I remember because when I hosted,
I've read your Twitter. You make jokes.
I make jokes. I sure do. I do. That should be my Twitter handle, Patrick Coffin, saucy on Twitter.
Yes. So I mean, and the thing is that we've also there was a long running discussion among some of us back in the day when Milo had his motto, the Chesterton paraphrase, right? He got it from
Rhesus
at Bellum, right? He got it from actually I did a blog post on it, and I can't remember whether it was Chesterton or me. You said the glad and angry faith. It's Chesterton talking about the Salvation Army and the way they, sort of have this glad and angry faith. And so that our faith should be with joy and willingness to stand up and fight, right? I think is the
laughter and war. Happy warriors.
Happy warriors. The laughter and war. And
Rachel, I'm sorry. Milo. This is not ringing a bell.
I know. He had a moment at Berkeley. They set the campus on fire or something. I think he lives in California now. Maybe he could be in your neighborhood. You should watch out. He lives right now on a house on a hill in the light. Well, we all know this because there have been all of this coverage about this. Someone sent a drone over the house, and we're showing the ways it looks out over this lake. It's really quite beautiful, and he has a cat that can play fetch, which is quite the accomplishment. Helen, her name's Helen, the cat.
And she was born in Troy, which is very fitting.
Her co-cat, second adopted cat is Troy. So there's Helen and Troy.
Oh, that's cute.
We dog people are still skeptical, right? But Helen's pretty. Helen is very pretty. She's very sweet.
Dogs have owners. Cats have staff.
Yes.
We'll tell him that for sure. Anyway.
So, but saying that you're talking about the shining moment in you and Milo, and I think the segue was mocking or why
the Reese's at Bellum, right? And of course, that Milo had been able to, the thing that happened at Berkeley, which is interestingly like being revisited now on college campuses now when we have something even more serious to deal with than feminism, which is Palestine.
Yeah.
And that the one argument that came up in a lot of discussions that we had in my chat was this sense of, is it appropriate? Isn't mocking and ridicule mocking the sacred? What happens when you mock the sacred? Which then I end up with, horribly enough, knowing the Charlie Hebdo covers that they made mocking the Trinity. Mm-hmm. Mocking the Incarnation, it seems different from mocking the Trinity because Christ is mocked, as you pointed out, right? In the crucifixion, the mocking happens, so it's sort of internal to the story. What happens when you ridicule the idea of the Incarnation, and that being okay? Now we've gone really dark and deep. The problem for Judaism is that they cannot accept the Incarnation because it seems not just risible but disgusting, and I know this somewhat from the medieval tradition. When you're talking about the hope for Israel to be converted, I go to one of the texts that I first wrote about in my first book, Honorius Augustinianus's Seal of Blessed Mary, which is just like Draco Chemicus, one titled in Latin. It's modeled on the Song of Songs as a drama of Christ's love for his mother, for Mary. And there's a scene at the end of it when Mary, speaking in the voice of the bride, is saying, I will be a wall for them. And what Honorius did from this is saying, Mary says this to the synagogue, I will be a wall for you, which in his context in 1100 is protecting the synagogue, protecting the people of the Jews from the massacres of the Crusaders. So Mary is there in this text from around 1100 saying, I will protect you. But the problem is in that period, in around 1100, that's a really hard argument even for Honorius to make, because the people, particularly in England where he's writing, are having debates with the Jews about the Incarnation, and the Jews are saying things like, well, it's disgusting that Christ would be, you say the Savior, the Messiah would be born. And I finally understand this now because I've read about the Jewish conversation more deeply. That he's born from a menstruating woman, right? And that being, he's born from a nida. He's born from a woman who is in her courses and therefore polluted. Ridiculing that is a little harder because it's sort of baked into the premise of, yes, he takes on our humanity, which he made. He enters into our frailty and our sinfulness, and that to people like Dawkins and Jews who don't recognize him as the Messiah it's mockable, right? I don't want to say laughable, risible, because it's deeper than that. It's like, I think the mocking that you were describing at that atheist humanist moment is deeper than that. It's the cackling, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You put an image of the chubby grinning Buddha, no one mocks.
Right. But you can both mock both the incarnate, birth from Mary, which Charlie Hebdo has, right? There's one of their covers is Jesus's birth. And it's also, Life of Brian level of mocking the ridiculousness of seeing your savior in a, condemned criminal.
Yeah. Another Jewish objection, and maybe not, and maybe it spans beyond the Jews at the time, but particularly the Jews who were waiting for a King David style anti-Roman Empire military victory oriented Messiah.
Right.
The life of Jesus ended in abject failure. The conquering king of Israel was spat upon and beaten and scourged and murdered outside the city gates in complete ignominy. How can that be God in the flesh? So our entire faith is founded on apparent failure and weakness. The strength of God, from whose fingers tumbled the entire cosmos, and there he is breathing his last. How do you square that circle? Well, we can't, but he can. And that's why St. Paul can talk about his own weakness being the vessel of Christ's strength.
But this is our hurdle, right? And interesting you square the circle, because that we put that in Draco Alchemicus as the puzzle they're trying to solve, right? Which is the magician's first trick, right? In Act 1, where he's invited the audience to this rave. The pigeon creates smoke and they all start raving, and the chant they have is square the circle, square the circle. It's like, take on this impossible transformation.
Right, and it'll be done by magic.
And it'll be done by magic rather than
not faith.
Mystery.
Yeah. Right.
Did you happen to read Nikos Kazantzakis' novel, The Last Temptation?
I have it. I keep carrying it around.
That counts, right?
Martin Scorsese is the Rolling Stones of directors, the most overrated director working today. Very confused, lapsed Catholic. Cracked moral compass and confused symbol system. So I didn't care at all for his movie version, starring Willem Dafoe, and an accidentally hilarious Harvey Keitel as Judas. However, the novel presents a very tantalizing idea, and that is that on the cross, as the crowd is jeering, this is in the gospel, hey, come down from the cross, we'll believe. Right. It's the temptation to just stop, make the agony stop, so that the Father's plan can still happen without him having to get to the finish line of that terrible question mark of falling into what Jesus, having a human nature, must have felt in a way like an abyss, where he's going to fall into the abyss of nothingness. Think of it, and I know Catholics will quickly say, "Oh, but he's quoting Psalm 22." But when he says
Catholics
the opening line of
should say he's quoting Psalm 21. You know that.
Yes. No. Yeah, we could. Let's talk about the Johannine comma. Yeah, Psalm 21 or Psalm 22.
I'm just talking the Vulgate and the Septuagint. I don't know what you're doing with this King James numbering.
If King James English was good enough for St. Paul, it should be good enough for you. But
that's a very credible accent. You must have lived here a while.
He's in extremis. He's feeling. He's not in despair, but he's feeling despair.
See how we're mocking the most sacred moment of history?
He's not play acting.
I thought we were mocking linguistics, but
yeah,
we're mocking the desire for proof, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's a permitted question for us when we're suffering. Why have you abandoned me? Because you're still in relationship when you're asking that question. Right. He's not shaking his fist. He's not doubting. He never remains. He always remains God, even though his human nature is, bodily. That's Hebrews 10:10 is the body of Jesus is the instrument that the Father used to save us. So he doesn't stop being God. God died on the cross. It's a heresy to say that God did not die on the cross. However, we're talking about the human decision of a divine person, and that divine person acquired a human nature. So there's the hypostatic mystery right there. But I think back to the Kazantzakis novel, I think that's a very interesting thought experiment. And he takes off. I think it's a young child that says, by the way, you can now come down. The Father's pleased. You don't have to go all the way. So, and he lives this whole other picture. Who used to do this? Eddie Izzard, the British comedian, used to do these really funny flights of fancy, going way off topic. Woody Allen did that. Steve Martin did that as well. And in the novel, he lives this whole life. He falls in love with Mary Magdalene, and they get married and have kids. And then he's wrenched back to that moment. He realizes this is all a temptation. This is Satan at the moments trying to do what he did in the temple during the 40 days of fasting. So I don't think it's blasphemous. I think it's a really interesting fictional what if.
Right. See, I find all of this totally persuasive, so I'm struggling with how to get people inside that understanding, because there are two big difficulties: the claim that this is God, the incarnation, and then I recognize that the description of the Trinity, the desire to understand the Trinity, comes from the recognition that this is God and that he's in relationship with the Father, and the dove, our mascot for the Mosaic Ark, of course. That the Spirit works in all of this, and it's interesting to me that it's like back when we did the intervention with Owen, and I was trying to talk first about storytelling, which I thought would help, but that it wasn't the really context for that, because you need a little bit of time on storytelling. But I've also, thought a lot about the way Dorothy Sayers uses the image of the metaphor, that what we know God is the maker. And so understanding the Trinity is understanding this process of making, right? It's the image that we have. We are made in his image and likeness because he made us. So anything we can understand is going to be a reflection of that. And you started with this. It's like it all flows from his fingers, right? And I love this. The medieval meditations are all full of God as artificer. I'm working right now on some texts that are explicitly about the art of describing Mary as an artifact. So either in poetry or in the exegesis of Scripture, where you're showing all of these different artifacts that God made, and therefore they are images of her, because she's the greatest artifact that he made, and that the understanding of God as creator is primary to then understanding all of these, the sort of the mystery both of the Trinity and of the incarnation. It's God as maker. And maybe, for me, that's like, how can you not see that as true and joyous? And it's always in the places where I've said this in class, right? The students, things that I have faith in are the things that I want to be able to give a reason for, as you said in the verse. But they're often the things that are so deeply embedded in your heart that reasoning them out it's like unpacking the poem.
I think a lot of things you're describing too were in the medieval mind embedded in the culture itself, and so it didn't need as much explanation as it does today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ironically, I was giving the example of Honorius and his image of Mary as the synagogue. Mary is the wall for the synagogue. In the 12th century, there's a lot of Jews in both northern France and in England who are asking questions of these writers, and so they are actually having to wrestle with it.
So that the non-Christian population was, though, or are you saying the Christian population had to wrestle with how to explain it?
That the Christian we have treatises by some of the authors I've worked on who are trying to explain it, and it's clear. It's like Anselm when he's doing his Cur Deus Homo. Why did God become man? He's clearly trying to answer Jewish objections. or Rupert of Deutz, who's one of my other commentators, he explicitly writes, dialogues with Jews to say, how can we explain this? When it's interesting it's the Jews that are the difficulty, because we surely share with them the idea of the Creator. So then you're saying, well, the Creator can't enter into his creation. How can that? And that's what Tolkien was very interested in. It's like, how do you say that the Maker entered into his artifact? How do you wrap your mind around that? I'm happy. The thing is, I like that mystery of squaring the circle and wrapping your mind around it, but not everybody enjoys it.
Rachel, can we talk about for people who might not have known about the intervention and Owen? Can you give the compressed version of what that was? Because I want to talk about something about the Trinity during that session.
Okay, so we've actually, those longtime passengers on the Mosaic Ark will know, because Kiltz and I back in the spring did a whole episode on how so Milo, he of Helen of Troy, had a show a couple years ago where he wanted to have Owen Benjamin, who's my fellow, everybody on Unauthorized, hi. Owen and I are on the same video platform, right? So this is going to be there. And those who are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to Unauthorized, because then I, can make more art. And Owen had been talking about the Trinity and how ridiculous he found it. And Milo, sensing drama, invited Owen on his show to have a chat, but set it up so that you, Patrick, and I, and E. Michael Jones, our friend, were there to talk about the Trinity, right? And it was only an hour, so it was hardly a 12-hour struggle session. and each of us had, maybe a few minutes. I mean, Milo brought us in about 20 minutes into the hour, so we only had 40 minutes total to talk through things, and each of us had, some sort of starting position of saying how to think about the mystery. But I've been dissatisfied with it, because I, of course, wanted to go on and on and on and on and on and talk about stories and storytelling and the like. But it stuck with me because it does seem to be a good problem, right? How do you explain the mystery to someone for whom it just seems nonsensical? And in the Mosaic Ark, Kiltz and I did a discussion in the spring, because this question recurs in our community right now, our unauthorized community. And there was some debate which managed to mention everybody who was involved in the intervention but me. You can see me sort of like, there was a magician and E. Michael Jones, I forget what they called him, and Milo, and I'm sitting there going, was I there? Right. So now we have a kind of long running joke in the Mosaic Ark that we're girls, and so they don't pay attention to us anyway.
You were a feminine AI bot.
Maybe,
seemed kind of real.
But the what's interesting in the Gospels is it's often the women going, they need more wine, right? Or it's in fact the women who have gone to the tomb to wash the body who find out that there's no body there. So we figure we in the Mosaic Ark have a role in nudging. We nudge. We are here to nudge. As I'm doing to you now, right? To, let's say, if we could have the longer conversation, what would we talk about? Where would we go? And it seemed, fair to give you a bit more airtime.
Well, the Trinity is one of those, it's the big enchilada of Christianity, but it's probably the least personal of the dogmas, because it contains heaven and heavenly things, and the reality of three divine persons sharing in some mysterious way one divine nature, the second person of which entered history and has both the human and divine nature. Often people are already asleep. So
I'm getting some more wine.
If people either have bad or no formation, or they've been wounded by some representative of the Christian faith, the Trinity is almost offensive, because it seems to be over mysterifying something that sounds, if you read, let's say, the Gospel of Mark, everything's almost, I won't say Dick and Jane, but it's very plain. Jesus did this, he said this, then he went to Jerusalem, they crucified him, then he died. it's very concrete, visceral, historical. The Trinity seems impossibly abstract.
Right.
And during that convention, I tried to get to Frank Sheed's very pithy 4-part explanation of the Trinity. But even that, if you're hostile, I mean, in the interest of accuracy, he called the Trinity gay, as everything else is gay. So he has this animus that's not going to be solved by an intervention like that. It might not even be solved.
No, it was not going to be solved by it, and it was. But we understood that.
I'm going to something that, and everyone watching, if you love lean English prose with not 1 ounce of fat, get Frank Sheed's book. Well, one of two books. One is a distillation of the longer work. The longer work is called Theology and Sanity. And the chapter on the Trinity has an anecdote by the great Frank Sheed, who died in 1981. He was an Australian-Irish lay apologist of the 20th century in the Catholic Church. And this book, Theology and Sanity, lays out a really interesting framework in its title. And he explains that there are 2 kinds of insanity. There's the insanity where you see things that aren't there. It's insane. They're not there, but you see them. But then there's a much more common form of insanity. And that's the insanity of not seeing things that are there. Like angels, like grace, like the beatific vision, like the power of the sacraments. That's another form of insanity. And in his chapter on the Trinity, he tells an anecdote about being at a talk and he's waiting to go on. And this woman comes up to him and says, "Oh, Mr. Sheed, what are you talking about this evening?" And he says, "Oh, I'm talking about the Blessed Trinity." And she kind of looked at him like, "Oh, I hope this is not long." And he said, "What? Like, how did you hear about this talk, madam? Like, why did you come here tonight?" And she says, "Me bishop told me to." He'd asked the reader, she probably would have drunk a gallon of cod liver oil if the bishop asked her to. But the idea of being bored by your final and eternal destination, how did we get here? The Trinity's boring because it's been depersonalized, and I think accidentally depersonalized by employing images like the shamrock, which is attributed to Saint Patrick. I don't know if he actually employed the shamrock. Terrible pedagogical tool for if you want to misunderstand the Trinity.
Use the shamrock. No, I like you. I've heard you reference that the little cartoon. Patrick, the Lutheran.
Yeah, they're Lutheran cartoons. Yeah, that was great.
The Lutheran cartoons, so they're going through all of the mistaken analogies for the Trinity. That it's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Modalism visited Patrick. Yeah. Come on, Patrick. I'm going to stop this. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yes, it's 5 minutes of telling you what the Trinity is not.
Right. So we still need to tell people what the Trinity is, right? And that's my version. I always like Dorothy Sayers with the closest we can get is the mind of the maker, which is, and she has this idea of the idea, the energy, and the power. That there's an idea in your head. It's like that's like the Father, right? But for creation to happen, for things to come into being, there has to be the energy, which she says is like the Son and the Incarnation and the Passion, and it's work, which the Son does. And then once the thing is made, and she's imagining it's the analogy is of a book, right? Everybody, all these people that wander around going, "I have this great idea for a book." It's like she says these are like, they're different heresies. If the person who was always saying, "Well, I have a book," and she said the book doesn't exist if it's just an idea in your head. You have to write it. Right, so you have to put the sweat and labor into it, become incarnate. But then once it's there, once the book exists, it has the Spirit's ability to, go out into the world and carry understanding. And maybe I don't know whether that goes in the Patrick's bad analogies or not, but I like it.
Well, I would only gently correct Mrs. Sayers' way, and that's because I'm a very rank amateur student of Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas. Before the book is written, it does exist. It does exist in her mind, as Jesus pre-existed before Mary said yes. So a thought is a metaphysical thing. It's a res. It is a thing, but it's not manifest yet. It hasn't been given flesh, so to speak. But apart from that, I think it's a homey analogy that can help people. I don't like to pick them apart too much. That one's better than the Shamrock, I will say. I don't even know. I'm not sure how this came to me. I doubt that I came up with it. But when I was writing my book, The Contraception Deception, I have a chapter on the Blessed Trinity and contraception. I don't remember if I bring this up, but let me start with the thing that I was thinking about as you were talking, Rachel, and that is music. Most people, north of 99%, love music of whatever genre. And I like the image of the Trinity as a singer singing. The singer is like the Father, and the Son is like the song. They flow together. The Son flows from the Father, but it's not the Father and the Son alone, because the existence of music as something you can experience in your heart through your ears is silence. And the Holy Spirit is like silence that bears forth what is sung and the presence of the singer. That just came to me. I probably wasn't the first to come up with it, but that was my little homey analogy of the Trinity. And the other one that I came up with for my book is marriage. I think marriage, the sacrament of matrimony, is the highest natural analog to the life of the Trinity. The husband instantiates the Father, and the wife instantiates the Holy Spirit. And together, the invisible love of husband for wife and the invisible love of wife for husband in the two in one flesh unity mystery, 9 months later, literally becomes one flesh. In the child. The child is a mini incarnation. And then, of course, you can play with that analogy by thinking of the child as the Holy Spirit, right? Who's breathed forth from the Father and the Son. So I think it works both ways. The more
I like the singer one better. I think the having, because, well, yeah, but right. And the thing is, I find all of these like poetically useful, and so it's interesting when people don't. So say, well, that's just, this is the Lutheran joke, right? In the cartoon characters, that all of the metaphors ultimately fail because there's some way in which they're not. I mean, it's a 3-in-1 kind of thing, but it's not even the numerical one. This is in our intervention. The one that Mike came up with, I thought, was the least convincing of the Pythagorean numerology, which I did appreciate. Doesn't work in quite the way that he was hoping. Yeah,
has a mathematical term to it, but it's totally abstract.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Maybe that's it. It's like, it's not. That's why I like Sayers, because it's a a metaphor of our own experience. That is, I mean, what she's trying to point to is that we're drawn to be like the mind of the maker, right? There's like, we're drawn to art. And that's obviously what we're trying to do in our poetry, in our sense of praise. You praise through your own joy and want to participate in the beauty of the Creator.
Well, maybe this is why the Song of Songs exists, right? The Song of Solomon, because you can only understand it poetically. You're never going to understand it mathematically or philosophically, or even, pick a language linguistically, anything. It can only be, the song analogy is very good. Yeah. You have the thought, you have the singer, and then you have the sound proceeding from the singer who had the thought to do that. And that's kind of like, I imagine the Song of Songs is God is inspiring a man to write this down and as a way to understand God's relationship to his people.
It's not the math of maths. It's the Song of Songs.
Right.
I mean, but the thing is, there is a mathematical way of thinking about it, but it's not the Pythagorean number series.
Yeah, I'll defend I'm a math idiot. I've been very open about that with Rachel. So like real math anxiety. So I am very probably 100% wrong on that. Go on.
Casey, there are 3 kinds of people in the world. Rachel knows the 3 kinds of people there are in this world. You know what they are, Casey?
No.
Well, in this world, those who are good at math, those who aren't. Thank you.
And
I'm here always.
Patrick proves his facility in dad jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, got a million of them. Let's start now. 9 hours worth.
Hey, it's not Thanksgiving yet, and you're on the Pacific Coast.
Yeah, true. That's true. St. Augustine's De Trinitate comes pretty close to a pristine linguistic way of pointing at the mystery of the Trinity. Frank Sheed in Theology Insanity, I think, is the best English language description of the Trinity. And when I'm talking about the Trinity, I like to keep it really, really simple and just describe it as it's the secret sauce behind the divine curtain. You're never going to figure it out, meaning when people say in catechetical circle, it's mystery, it's almost like, shut up, he suggested.
Right, yeah. And that's what people are reacting to, that they don't like that.
Mystery argument as discussion stopper somehow. In this sense, is only a truth that's so profound that our microbrains are not able to receive it. Like a thimble will never receive an ocean, which is why we need eternity to chew on this forever and ever and ever. But 4 steps, they're really easy. God has one divine nature, and that one divine nature is shared by 3 divine persons. The Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God. None of the other persons are God. The second person of the Holy Trinity had 2 natures, human and divine. That's the Trinity. That's a structural, compressed description of it. But I think because it's absolutely bereft of emotion, people find it hard to warm up to. There's nothing fuzzy about it, as there is about gentle Jesus, meek and mild. All the other stories of the Bible itself are concrete. They're historical. There's the flesh and blood. They involve people and drama and life and birth and death. But the Trinity, by definition, is metaphysical. I just think we should just let mystery be mystery and kind of gently move on. And our Lord is a teacher. He loves to be sought and have questions asked. And I think teachers of the faith are wise to just let the Holy Spirit be the teacher. Bishop Sheen used to say to the Holy Spirit, "You convert them, I'll instruct them."
Well, I actually like thinking about it as a mystery, but I like thinking about it as art, which I've said a lot, right? And therefore, it's sort of a practice, right? Theology is a practice.
Yeah. One of the movie Contact, which I didn't like at all. I don't think it has got a great message, but it had a brilliant scene in it towards the end when Jodie Foster is seeing this foreign, alien place for the first time, and it's so beautiful, and she can't describe it. And the only thing she can say is, "They should have sent a poet."
Yeah, yes.
She kept saying, "They should have sent a poet. I can't describe this." She spent all her life studying science and astronomy, and it was useless to her.
Everything she'd seen up until that point was like straw.
Right, exactly. Right.
Well, and the sending of the poet is that we're working on this. I mean, what I did at the beginning of our discussion tonight when I'm saying, what's the Mosaic Ark and how do we think about, it's like, what is it, our title? And it's always all of these embedded layers, so that the mosaic of the Mosaic Ark is simultaneously the thing with picture from different pieces, and it's the Moses, and it's also the figural pointing to Mary, all at the same time, which is not an image of the Trinity. That's not what I'm thinking that is, but that poetry trains us to look for, as in story, these reincorporations and fulfillments that are, I mean, as a storyteller, I say that's how we experience the sense of meaning. It's, and certainly as a historian, right? You set up all these, you set up this story. What matters about history is always people saying, aha, that's how, right? And if you can say why, then you're in really good shape. But how did we get to this point where X, Y, or Z happened? And the satisfaction comes in that sense of, well, assembling the pieces, but then in having the thing that you didn't realize mattered come back in and matter. So I mean, God with the incarnation is entering into that process for us.
Was it Augustine who said the bird that built the nest was hatched therein?
Well,
That's it.
he
I love
could.
that.
This is what all of the medieval meditations on, well, the ones I'm working, the major medieval meditations on Mary are constantly that she is the container of he who could not be contained. So she's the ark that God designed for himself to dwell in.
Yeah. I do remember something Augustine said was, you probably heard this before. This is something you need to chew on it and maybe hear it more than once. It's about Our Lady. Him whom the heavens cannot contain, the womb of one woman bore. She ruled our ruler. She carried him in whom we are. She gave milk to our bread. Him whom the heavens cannot contain, the womb of one woman bore.
Astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She carried him. She carried him in whom we are. She gave milk to our bread. It's just so much lightning in that bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys are on X, formerly known as Twitter, or maybe you have a.
I am.
I got Casey on there, so she publishes poems on there.
Well, there's a whole new raft of really kind of snotty Protestant geniuses with 7 followers that just joined last week. It's almost like
it was after All Saints Day, wasn't it?
I don't this and with all charity. No, but they have this sneering way of getting across objections that Catholics have heard 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And
they sought you out, Patrick.
Them and Asian porn bots. I really liked your post.
The Asian porn bots send you DMs, right?
Some do.
I'm sorry to tell you, they try to contact me too, so I'm not sure they're selective. That's selective.
Oh, no, I'm special to them, Rachel. Excuse me, I'm special to them.
No, I know I'm special on Facebook with all of the widowed, the widowed fathers who have military service who definitely want to friend me. Don't tell me you get those. I want them only for myself.
It's a gift. You can have them. You can have them. But the idea that the objection that Mary was just a nice lady, or worse, a sinner that God happened to use, just put her on the shelf.
Oh yeah.
Their vision of the Incarnation is that our Lord and Savior appeared on the banks of the Jordan at the age of 30 by Star Trek teleport, right?
Yeah. The Hollywood entrance.
Blastocyst, zygote, then fetus, the way everybody else did, and denigrating the woman who gave the word flesh, the eternal God. It just blows my mind how little people think through their own objections.
I don't. And if you love Christ, you love his mother. You don't dismiss his mother and just shoo her away, which I literally saw somebody do this when referring to her once.
Right.
That's not a lot of love.
Is that possible, to love Mary more than Jesus?
No. But in my meditations, it's misunderstanding the creation that then devolves into this. So, well, like Mary can't be important. It's like it's back with our sense of time and how, looking back, we suddenly realize how all the pieces were all there all along. But God can see that always.
One of my mentors is Peter Kraft. I'm reaching for something here. He has not one but 2 books on heaven, and he's talking about the mystery of time. And he imagines. So this is a chord, of course. Now, most people think of time of God's foreknowledge of events before they happen, without undermining human freedom. We think of time as, if I can do this, before, middle, before, during, after, past, future. So we're on this continuum, and well, my gosh, if God can know what's going to happen further down the line, then he's causing it. Therefore, human freedom is just a mystery. Is just an illusion.
Right.
God is benign bank manager who's actually a tyrant because we don't have any free choice because God foreknows. And Craig says, now turn it around. This is how God sees.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
All of it down a long time. So God can foreknow things, not because they happen in God's mind before they happen, but because God is the source of the eternal now. It doesn't mean that your choice is forced just because God knows you're going to do it, any more than a professor of history, I don't know, somewhere in Chicago, has magical powers or forces a student to fail because the professor can see all these failures through the semester means failure. Right. The student's choice to fail might be foreknown by the professor, but the professor doesn't cause the failure. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does the professor cause the good work? We hope education works.
Yes. Cause of all good work, but the cause of bad work. That would be
actually
somewhere.
That's good. That's actually so God helps us do good work, but not causes us to fail. That works.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. You could do a parody or like a send up of the write that out in the way Thomas writes the Summa. That would be funny.
Well, so in Unauthorized World, Vox Day, our Supreme Dark Lord, actually wrote a book called Summa Helvetica, which was taking Thomas's proof on the nature of angels and applying it to elves.
I love the name. I haven't read it, but I just absolutely love that name.
Yes, so we're in the right territory for that kind of logical demonstration. Yes. Okay.
There's body words in it, but I would point out Philosophy Bro. Philosophybro.com has a whole bunch of different philosophical works, but it's written in like Jim Bro language.
That's funny.
It would work.
That's
Think
good.
Gervais explaining the 5 proofs. Very funny. By the way, if Ricky's watching, I have a 2,000-word essay invitation to Ricky Gervais to come on my podcast. I think he's an absolute genius. I love
hilarious.
Gervais. And not just the obvious, the 2020, the epic rant monologue at the Golden Globes. I've been watching him. My first introduction was The Office, the original series from the BBC. Yes. And then I've watched everything else that he's done. And my premise is that he's not really committed to his own atheism. I think he lost faith at the age of 8. And I think the key to understanding Ricky Gervais is to watch Derek, the series in which he plays kind of a short bus, vaguely handicapped man, and his latest show called Afterlife. So my invitation is called Afterlife and the Coming Conversion of Ricky Gervais. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but I think Ricky Gervais' return to the church is going to do with another Emmy winner, and that's Bishop Sheen.
Interesting.
I could go on and on about why I think Ricky Gervais is just a top flight. I think he's a good example of what I've called insider outsiders. He's outside the fold of the church, but he has this strong sense of where true north is, as does Brand in his own way, Jordan Peterson in his own way. People outside the fold, and yet there's this kind of binary true, false, right, wrong thing that they're onto.
Yeah.
And so there it is.
But look, we have one more
movie that he did. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Casey.
Oh no, I can't remember. I can't remember the name of it. It's this wonderful movie that he did with Taya Leone about 15 years ago, where he I think he had a near-death experience and he could see dead people and talk to them. So it was a little bit like the Shyamalan movie, but it was a comedy. What was that?
Ghost Town?
Yeah, I think that was it. But it had such a beautiful message in it because towards the end of the movie, he was a terrible, miserable person. And all these ghosts are talking to them. And it turns out that the ghosts that he was talking to, he actually did have a connection with them. He knew them in life, and he ended up helping them afterwards, why they were still sticking around. Like he kind of figured it out that he just needed to not be a jerk. And he was helping these people. It was such a sweet movie.
Well, there you go. And same with Afterlife. Same with, well, Afterlife is certainly his most serious drama. But why does he learn not to be a jerk, like Bill Murray did in Groundhog Day?
Well, it was love.
A bigger jerk, not no jerk.
Yeah.
If there's no God, if at the end of your life there's no judge to whom you have any kind of accountability, then why is not being a jerk, being a kind, loving person, superior to being a jerk?
Mm.
Well, on what grounds do you use words like right and
Mm-hmm.
wrong? Those are not material categories.
Speaking of material categories, we have a super chat. So sleep deprived bear, who's probably having to stay up very late for this stream, says, "Thank you for the stream. You're very welcome. We're happy to be here." Oh, good. Another trick.
Effect. Not trick. Just kidding.
There are tricks.
This is
Wait,
freeze?
what? Okay, so wait. What's frozen? You holding still now?
No, I'm
Tim, it's not.
This is fun. I got you. I want you guys to help me on this. So I've acquired a little skill, and it works with any kind of cards anywhere in the world. There's so many different kinds of card manufacturers, and this is why people, for some reason, don't want to play cards with me. But I look honest. I can cut into the deck 4 times and come up with 4 of a kind. I'll show you how it works. All right, this is cut number 1. Just the deck's kind of new, so they're slippery. There. Cut there. Here is cut number 2. Whoops. There. Can you see them all there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last one, I can't prove this, but I'm actually going to do it while not blindfolded, but my eyes are going to be closed. I don't really have a lot of, I'm not sure about that. Dang.
Whoa. Nice.
Okay. Rachel, I'm going to start here. I want you to say, you're going to find that last ace.
Okay.
Very quick. You're going to find the finder ace. All right. So I really will try to stop where you stop me. Okay.
Okay.
But don't let me get to all the way to the end. You ready?
Okay.
Starting now.
Stop. No, okay, there.
Do you want that one or the one next to it?
The one next to it.
This one
Yep.
here?
Yep.
Okay, I'm turning it face up. 6. Wonderful. Fell down to 6. That was a free choice. I really tried to stop you exactly where that was.
Okay.
IX.
Why is it IX?
SIX.
Oh, SIX. I thought you were making Roman numerals on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. Yes, VXIIILC.
VI. That would have only been 2 cards.
You guys are not colorblind, right? You know your colors?
Yes.
Red, right?
Yep.
Casey, let me pick on you. What color is that? Black or red?
Black.
What's the suit?
Clubs.
Clubs, right? Okay, so the ace of clubs, right there. How about this? Also black?
Yes.
What's the suit?
Spades.
I'll go really slow. I'm going to put the spade on top of the club and snap my fingers. You probably didn't see it, but they've changed places. Now the spade's on the bottom. No, I knew you wouldn't believe me. When I snap my fingers again, they change back to the way they were. It's crazy. It's very subtle.
Very subtle.
The really, really hard part is actually getting them over here.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very good.
Thank you. Again.
Those are tricks.
Right.
No, wait.
Nice.
Yeah,
you said I needed my own deck.
Oh, we're going to go there?
Yeah.
All right. This is based on the ability to detect liars.
Who rang that bell?
That's my dog Scout. So he
do it again. It's like you rang ability to detect liars. Bing.
Yeah. That's his potty indicator. I can probably walk with you as I take him out, but we'll get through this. Rachel,
I think you'll let the dog have you after the 2 hours are up. Okay.
No, I don't want to see them, but shuffle the deck.
Oh, shuffle them. Okay. I don't have a nice little mat like he does.
Obviously, you cut the deck because I can't possibly know the order of the cards, right?
Pretty much impossible. I would say. Okay.
All right, Rich. Take a batch of cards. I don't want to see the deck because people are going to think I have an advantage. Don't put the deck back up in the frame.
Okay.
Take a bunch off. Take 9 cards from wherever you want. Could be the top or the bottom. Just take 9 away from the deck and leave the rest of the deck apart.
I've lost count. Just saying. Okay. I've got a bunch of 9, and I've got the rest of the cards.
Put the rest of the cards away. You're only going to need that small packet.
Cards away.
Good. And give that packet a little shuffle too.
Okay. All of this relies on them thinking I'm not lying, you realize.
Yeah, that's true, but they trust you, not me, because I'm an.
You think they trust me? Everybody put your hand up. Do you trust me? Casey, where's your hand? There you go. Okay.
So hold the cards like a poker hand with all the faces toward you. Now, I can see that. It doesn't matter because I can't see the faces, but you're holding all the cards, right? Like this. Perfect. I want you to mentally think of one of the cards. Let's say, I don't know, the third from the left. Pick that card. Don't pick it out, but just look at it and think it.
Is that my left?
That's your left. Third card in. Only think of that card. Have you memorized it? Okay, gather the packet up and hold it like this. This is called mechanic's position or dealer's position, right? Are you right-handed? Okay, down where I can't see it. Now, we're going to shuffle the deck in a kind of a stylized way, and it's going to be according to what that card is. So let's say the card is the Ace of Spades. I'll show you how to do it. Just watch how I do this. A-C-E, Ace. Put the pack on top. O-F. S-P-A-D-E-S. So if the card is, let's say, the 2 of diamonds, T-W-O, bonk, O-F, bonk.
Or you spell them out. You say spell it.
M-O-N-S. That's the way I want you to shuffle the packet. You understand? Okay. So start with the value, which is Ace through King, and I don't know what that is.
Right, but they're words, not numbers.
It's not numbers, right? So S-E-V-E-N, and then place the rest of the packet on top of what is the 7.
You're assuming I can spell after all this conversation.
Correct. That's my assumption.
Okay. All right. To count them out and then put them back in and do it again.
Count the number out and then place the rest of the packet on top of the counted word that you just counted. And then lift the whole thing up again and do the word of, which is 2 cards. O-F. Good. Lift it up again and do the suit. Hearts, clubs, spades, or diamonds.
Okay.
Okay, now you're holding the packet, right? I want you to do this. I want you to read them off. So in my case, 7 of hearts, whatever the next thing is, until you get to the end. When you come to the card you're thinking of, whatever you do, don't let on that this is the card you're thinking of. So just go total
Okay,
poker
so now
face.
it's just read out what they. I can like what if I do a giddy face because then you can't tell.
Well, if you did do a giddy face on all of them, I'm not. It's probably going to throw me off. But just
okay, so you need
in
me
other
to
words,
be not silly.
As you're saying names of these cards, just put on. Don't give away the card you're thinking of as you say it. And I'm going to still try to hack into your mind and tell you what card you're thinking of at the end. So start with the top card from top to bottom. Read through the list now. Go.
Okay, you guys realize I'm going to try really hard here. Okay, I can do this. Queen of Spades, 2 of Diamonds, 8 of Spades. Oh, should I be showing them to the camera so they can see it?
Sure. Doesn't matter.
Jack of Spades, 5 of Diamonds, 9 of Spades, Jack of Hearts, 8 of Hearts, 4 of Hearts.
You're thinking the 9 of Diamonds.
Nope.
5?
Yes.
Did I say 9?
Mm-hmm.
It's in the middle somewhere?
What? I said yes. It was the 5 of Diamonds.
5 of Diamonds. No 9 of Diamonds there, right? I think I miscalled it. Diamonds. Yeah. Thank you. Tip your waitress.
Wait a minute. There was no 9 of Diamonds.
What?
There was no 9 of Diamonds. So when you...
Right. Yeah, I was thinking 5, but it was the 5 of Diamonds.
You're right.
Right.
So you said the 9. There wasn't a 9. There was 5.
No, there wasn't a 9. It was a 5. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever thinking one thing but saying another? Yeah, that's it.
I rattled him. He said the wrong thing. However, there was... There was no 9 of Diamonds, so he couldn't have heard me say that.
You mean there's no luck would have it there's no 9 of Diamonds in that particular deck?
No, there's no 9 there's no 9 of Diamonds here, so that was not the card that I could have been thinking of because there wasn't one.
Yeah. What I did there is I got a twofer. I got the 5 of Diamonds, but I first named the only card that's not in that deck.
Well, yeah, of many cards that are not in that deck, but that one's not in there.
How many cards are missing from the deck you used from my magic trick, Dr. Brown?
Well, you told me to put these over here.
Oh, okay. I thought you were holding up the whole
no,
52.
This is 9.
Is that an old new deck?
I don't know. I found it in a drawer.
Nice. That's hilarious.
Wait, now am I going to find the 9 of Diamonds on top here? No, that was a Queen of Clubs.
That would be good. That would have been good.
I'm going to play. The next thing I'm going to do is play poker with Patrick and beat him.
Have poker, Dean. Yeah, poker's tricky. I find a lot of people can get really lucky at poker and win a lot of money just from kind of stumbling into logic. Here, tell you what. This is like a show closer.
Okay.
I like this. I like this card a lot. This trick a lot, and you'll see why it's a closer. All right, so this is fun. I really will try to stop where Casey tells me to stop. Perfect. Casey, I'm waiting to say the word stop, all right?
Oh, okay. Uh-huh. Stop.
Right there?
Uh-huh.
No, I'm actually not looking, but we'll show the camera. See that?
Mm-hmm.
You can all see it, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I think I can do this well. And I think you're going to really, really like it. And I think just like before, I think I've got the card to the top. Was that it?
Nope.
It was not the 10 of diamonds?
No.
Nope.
All right. I think what happened was I didn't say the magic word. And Dr. Brown, could you help me with the magic word? I want you to repeat after me. R. Bada. Karba. That's abracadabra backwards.
Woohoo! It worked.
Now, this is actually the climax is this. Casey, you can help with this. Say 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
Wow. Very nice.
Very nice.
The crowd goes wild.
Yeah. Can I, Rachel, you need a stadium applause fake sound.
You know how hard I worked on my tech setup so that it doesn't have extra sound in the background. You can hear
nice.
you can hear the in the back of my Tolkien videos because I didn't know how to do that.
Cool. Got you. Sounds good.
So guys, I am freaking out about how he knew which card that was. I'm thinking 5 and 9 have the same number of letters in the number 5, 9.
No, I was. This is very easy for me to say. I was thinking 5. Don't know why I said 9. Maybe
it's an on-camera problem. Yeah, I sometimes I go back and I listen to it myself on the streams. Yes, I do that as sometimes, and I'm like, I know I didn't say that, and it's there, right? It's recorded, and you've definitely said the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, people. This is why it's strange that our whole justice system is based on one of the least reliable methods of memory, and that's human memory. People hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
I remember a anecdote from live radio days. A guest was insulting another guest that I had previously interviewed, and he said everything about the guest, that he was a physicist and with this, and he was fraudulent, and we were like trying to get him knocked off his own stupid talking points. It's very unprofessional to attack another guest when they're not there to defend themselves. Then at the break, I said in the microphone with the sound muted to the guest, I told the sound engineer, "Can you believe he mentioned the name?" He goes, "No, I'll delete it." So when the show, it was live radio, so we couldn't. It was too late to dump it, but we could edit it for the archives. And we listened to that, waiting to hear the name. He never named. I would pass a lie detector that he did. He didn't.
Yeah, brain filled it in the missing information.
You're right. Yep. Yeah. Talk a little bit about Marshall McLuhan. Can we rope Marshall McLuhan in here because you mentioned him earlier?
Yes.
I had the unmerited grace of interviewing his son, Eric, who co-wrote The Laws of Media with him and was sort of the baton holder, keeping his father's legacy moving forward. He dropped dead, sadly, about 4 years ago in Colombia after giving a talk. So Eric, may he rest in peace. And I became very interested in Marshall McLuhan when I was in Toronto. And I never visited, any of the lore hotspots where kind of his hangout spots, but I did devour a lot of his books. Maybe I was a little young to understand what he was getting at. The first book I read was The Mechanical Bride from 1954. But his other book, The Gutenberg Galaxy, which was published in 1962, he essentially predicts the internet.
Yeah.
This, global electric connectivity reality that didn't quite exist yet. And this is where the term global village comes from, which was only possible because of the internet. And of course, his famous phrase, "the medium is the message," has so much incarnational resonance to it. It applies to font design. Think about the meaning of a font shape. People don't think about it, but it's a profound thing, the shape of letters and what they signify. Roman letters engraved, like on the Parthenon or something. There's an inherent dignity and severity to certain fonts that make them fitting for certain messaging. Likewise, Comic Sans so beloved by 6-year-olds and grandmas everywhere. Look at that. Yeah.
Our absolutely beautiful graphic design of Draco Alchemicus.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was
Nice.
is critical. That it's not just the picture, it's also the lettering.
Sure. Beautiful. McLuhan studied at Cambridge. He studied a guy called I.A. Richards and another scholar named Harold Innes. And Chaucer, I think his dissertation might have been on Chaucer.
No.
But was it not on Chaucer? Nope. No, it was on Thomas Paine? No.
Nope.
Was it? Who was Mark?
Can you
drop the other foot? What was his dissertation on? I forget.
Now I'm forgetting who the 16th century guy is, but what it in effect is a study of the trivium, of the grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and the way it develops over the centuries, so that he can get to the 16th century and explain that the great battle that's going on apparently between these different writers, and I am blanking on who the topic was. It wasn't Chaucer. Is this ongoing battle between basically the grammarians and the dialecticians, the poets and the logicians. Just utterly topical to what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Well,
yeah.
McLuhan went to a talk by a guy called Chesterton, became very interested in Chesterton, wrote in the Dalhousie Review his first publication, which was on Chesterton, published in my hometown of Halifax. That's why I know it. And Pope Paul VI appointed him to I don't know if it's a defunct dicastery now or not, but it was called the Dicastery for Social Communications, and he served that in the early 70s. And I think Paul VI was a student of Marshall McLuhan. If you look at Evangelii Nunciandi, the Apostolic Exhortation from 1975, he I don't know why I remember this. It's number 22. Paul VI talks about it's actually a better written papal document than Humana Vitae is, Evangelii Nunciandi. And he talks about teachers of the faith, and he says that teachers are only credible to audiences if they're also witnesses. And I think that is the medium. The medium is the message incarnate right there. Do you believe your own thing? Is it just above the neck talking, or are you a witness to the truth of it? How much will you put yourself out to convey this truth? How much are you willing to suffer for it? And I think he got that from Marshall McLuhan's writings, that the medium is the message. And McLuhan taught that he was a daily mass goer, by the way. He became a Catholic in late 30s, I think, and died New Year's Eve, 1980. He went to mass every day. He said only in the case of Jesus Christ is the medium the message. They are united only in that one case. Else is a reflection of that incarnational reality of the medium is the message. No one has seen the Father but me. Jesus manifests the Father, literally, physically, sacramentally, and historically. And McLuhan, boy, he has so many isms. He's just a really fascinating Catholic thinker. He had a cameo in Woody Allen's Annie Hall. He was featured on Laugh-In. He was really a house. Most people don't know who he is today. In some ways, the other Torontonian, Jordan Peterson, has kind of supplanted him in the fame department, but really quite a scholar.
McLuhan's a better medievalist.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I want to end there. That was beautiful, Patrick. That's the perfect.
Yeah, well,
it is
the perfect testimony to what we're trying to model, witness.
Yeah. Preach. A very good bio, Clarence Gordon, I recommend to people. It's called Escape into Understanding. Yeah. His PhD was in English. It's coming. It's coming.
I'm going to let you figure this out.
Yeah,
you're looking it up.
No, I want to say it's the The pamphleteer Thomas Paine. I don't know why I'm thinking that. I go through
It's
life being
not
wrong.
though, and it's someone I don't know. Nash. It's Thomas Nash.
Thomas Nash. Very good. I was at Thomas Paine. And John Nash, A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe, screenplay by Akiva
We're
Goldsman.
just gonna have to stop. Just
Javier Milei chainsaw and shut up.
No, it's Patrick. You get to come back. You pass you pass the test that we will definitely drag you back onto our arc.
This is a great Freudian slip. When we're desperate, I mean, we desperately we
Hey, we'll may drag you back on when we were desperate too, because you were the only one who was able to teach me how to write that blurb. So
good. Well, my existence is somewhat justified.
Can I ask you one question before you leave?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
We're done.
well,
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
I permit it.
Yeah. And if it's a hard one, I'll just hand it off to Professor Brown.
Well, it's an easy. I think it's probably an easy one. Is there any particular magician working today that you really like, whose shows you really like and you watch, or you would recommend?
Oh no, that's like, which of my children do I love the most?
Oh.
Darren Brown is probably my favorite mentalist. He's the English phenom. There is a Spanish magician named Dani Daortiz, D-A-N-I. Just Google Dani, D-A-N-I, Penn and Teller.
Okay.
He's a student of a famous Spanish magician, and watch him with close-up using an ordinary deck of cards. Penn and Teller, Donny Osmond, and whoever the female hostess of Fool Us is. If magic's real, it would look like what he does. Magicians cannot reverse engineer what he does with a simple deck of cards. So Danny D'Ortiz is just so great.
Yeah, fascinating.
I'm kind of old school Lance Burton. You know you're good when the Monte Carlo Hotel gives you the name of your own theater, the Lance Burton. He's got a very homey Kentucky personality, but he's very, very, very good. I don't like television magicians like Chris Angel and David Blaine. I don't trust TV magic because it's so subject to post-production editing, and they use audience members as stooges. To me, that's not magic. So I've never liked that. I'll give you one more. He does live shows, although he's also on television. He's Japanese. His name is Cyril. Just look up Cyril. Really mind-bending things. So I can do, maybe I can do it. Maybe I'll just lure myself back in. I have learned how to, and this is very fun to do. I can't do it now because it would take too much prep, but I take everything's borrowed. So a borrowed quarter, a nickel would also work. A Sharpie where the spectator's name is initialed on both sides of the coin, and a borrowed can of Coke or Pepsi. And I can slam the quarter through the metal of the borrowed can, and glug, glug, glug. It's in there. You can chick, 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 and like cut it in half with metal scissors. That's great. And so
that's cool.
When I first began to perform magic, when I was learning effects, I wanted to really only study and perfect effects that the audience could never figure out. But when I got better at it, and when I began to look at the masters and learn from them, my standard's different now. I just want to do things where people go, that actually can't be done, and that can is one of them. I think because everything's. I like magic involving ordinary everyday things. I think it's more magical than some glitter bomb thing or an F-16 vanishing. No one can relate to that.
That actually reminds me of a slight follow-up question here. So you mentioned Chris Angel, so it was Mind Freak, right?
Yeah.
And is there any kind of, and I immediately thought of him because this makes me think of it, is there any kind of performance that you've seen that it's just really off-putting. Like you thought it was maybe just verging too much into something that looked demonic. And that was something you wouldn't like.
And now we continue into our third hour.
Sorry.
It's a very short answer. No, I've never seen anything creepy on television that I either didn't know the mechanics of or couldn't find out how to do it. But there is a genre of magic I stay away from, and that is seances. And I never play with, I could design a mentalism effect that involves the deceased of someone in the audience. I don't want to do that. That's necromancy. One step removed. I don't do that. Nothing to do with seances. I don't want any part of it. Even if it's just shtick for magic and entertainment, I stay far away from that. I think it's offensive and can scandalize people and bother them.
Yeah, it's scandalizing, and also you don't know what's hanging around that you can't see that you might not like.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So people want to go to hopeisfuel.com and watch Dr. Rachel Fulton Brown's magnificent session with me on the Blessed Mother. We all need hope, and that seems to be leaving the room more and more each day. So hopeisfuel.com, it's a big fat Thanksgiving sale, and we'd love to extend it to people who visit there. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for playing with us. It means a lot. Yeah.
All right. Good to meet you, Casey. Thanks.
Nice to meet you too.
So I'm gonna play our outro. Don't leave yet. Okay.
No.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Did I read all the super chats? Yes, I did. All right. Night, everyone.